Welcome to the Goddess Conference Conversations. In this space, we will connect with interesting personalities, presenters and artists from our international community and chat about the upcoming conference's topics and themes.
Everyone, today I've got the wonderful Peter with us. Please could you introduce yourself and share how you were drawn to Avalon?
Sure. So my name's Peter. I've been in Avalon for probably 25 years, give or take. Been part of the conference for almost that same length of time. I was drawn to Avalon through the energies, the mysteries, but ultimately I got kind of sucked in by love. I met my wife here at the time and was drawn to here for that. The relationship didn't last, unfortunately, but my love of the island did. And I can't imagine myself living anywhere else for now.
What is healing to you, Peter?
Healing is one of those terms. It's such a broad term. So for some people, healing is energy and crystals and Reiki. Other people, it's herbs. Some people, it's hugging trees. Some people, it's having sound baths. There is no one thing that healing is, right? For me, healing is as important about learning to rest and heal, from the day-to-day kind of worries and wear and tear in the world, as it is about understanding how therapies work and how we can't survive on our own. So really, if you really boil it down, healing to me is, as humans, we can't survive on just our own, right? A one-man, one-woman hermit in the woods on their own doing nothing can't survive. We need community, we need people, we need energy, we need magic, we need ground and crystals. So for us, we need the world around us to help restore us, to help rest us, help heal us, to help move us forwards. So for me, healing is everything from a good night's sleep to a crystal sound bath to a good dose of herbal tea. So for me, healing is literally everything I can do within my world and beyond my world to restore balance and bring me back to my kind of who I should be 24/7. But life takes its toll. We get tired, we get restful, we over fatigue ourselves, we overwork ourselves. So healing is how we restore balance to our body and our mind and our spirit.
Do you consider yourself a healer?
I do, but I don't often use the term because it's far too overused, if that makes sense. So for me, anyone who claims to be a healer should themselves not have ailments, anything similar to what they're trying to treat. So if someone is a masseuse but suffers a bad back, then there's something wrong with that. If someone who is a herbalist but has massive nutritional deficiencies, there's something wrong with that. So for me as a healer, I'm able to heal people and heal the body, the mind, spirit in ways that I know myself is very, very strong. Yeah, that's how I work. I'm not going to claim I can heal someone's numeracy issues. I can't heal their learning difficulties, right? I can't heal their neurodiversity because I don't believe that isn't my gift. I can do massage therapies, I can do work with crystals, I can do work with magic, absolutely. So I can heal in the way that I myself, I know these areas in me is 100% good almost all the time, right? So those areas where I know I am myself, always solid, always strong, always, eternally energetic, right? I'm happy to heal in those areas, but I wouldn't venture forth and try and heal in areas where I know myself I've got my own other weaknesses or development areas. So yes, I would see myself as a healer, and I have done healing practices, but I don't trade on that. I don't try and commercially practice as that.
You don't introduce yourself as that?
No, I don't. If people are around me and they start saying they got a backache and they ask me to see if I can help, I'll help it. But I've always believed that healers shouldn't self-promote themselves in the moment. So when I'm in a circle of people and someone goes, "Oh, my foot hurts," and then three people, "Oh, I'll heal you," or "Let me massage you," and whether it's for money or not, there's some sort of imbalance in the personal gain. So for me, if you can heal, that's great. If someone asks me for help, whether it's healing or help, I'll be the first person to offer it. But I don't volunteer myself, because a part of that exchange is, if people are just used to being given to them without any effort or energy exchange, then there's an imbalance there, But if people are asking for support, asking for help, asking for services, asking for healing, I'm more than prepared to help.
How is your spiritual path connected to healing?
I'd say I discovered different healing practices as I was exploring my spiritual path, if that makes sense. I wouldn't say that my spiritual path is intrinsically linked to healing, but healing, the ability to heal, and more importantly, to understand how healing works, is very much a part of spirituality. So for me, I've studied and learned a variety of different magical systems, both Western and Eastern. I've spent time with tribes, and I've spent probably more of my time throughout my kind of lifestyle doing work within the goddess community, because it's a community that actually stays together and supports. There's always politics and infighting and little moments, but that happens with any kind of tribal setup. but I've probably stayed connected to the goddess community more than any other. And the healing within that, I've always found it very interesting that people are very willing to embrace healing that is known and understood, healing that is from certain goddesses, which is great. And within that, there's a real honesty about it. There's not some, you don't get so many weekend Reiki practitioners within the goddess community, right? So to me, goddess priestesses or people who practice goddess who then also do healing, it's a life cause. They've been doing it for decades. They haven't just learned it on a 2-day weekend, and they don't go around referring to themselves as healing master level 4 or this kind of stuff. You know, it works. You know, and it channels through them. And that's a real beauty of working with goddess, is that you're just a conduit. So it's not really you that's doing the healing, right? You are very much the vessel that the healing is coming through. If that makes sense. One of my first teachers referred to it as the healer. You are just the magnifying glass, and you're taking sunlight and you're focusing it, right? But you are not the light. You are not the heat. You are not the energy. You're just the vessel that it's coming through, and you, with your hands and your intention, you might be focusing it, but it's not you. And I think that's where a lot of healing modalities fall down, where the healer's starting to think it's them, right? The miracle workers, the people who the one-touch healing, the remote. I'm going to heal you. I'm going to heal you on this other world. I'm going to send my thoughts across the journey, and it's going to land on you, and it's going to make you better, right? Whether you ask for it or not. To me, that's a little bit out there, you know. So for me, healing is very much about you are a conduit for energy. Whether you call that goddess, whether you call that spirit, ground energy, whatever you choose to tap into. For me, it's goddess mostly, and different goddesses are very adept at healing certain things. You know, there's not one goddess I believe that is great at healing all things, because they all have their own archetypes and attributes and different associations, but they all prefer their own type of work, if that makes sense.
That kind of leads nicely into my next question, which is, do you work with a specific goddess of healing?
I work with a variety of goddesses and always have done, and throughout my years of conference I've introduced new goddesses, and some I've really liked, some I haven't connected with. Even the ones I don't connect with, I can still work with, because once you understand energy, you can work with energy. But I think for me, generally, when I think of the goddess of healing, Bridie comes up quite quickly. But for me, Bridie is not just the waif-like maiden jumping through the white flowers. She's also the goddess of the blacksmith and the anvil, you know, hammer and fire. So she's not just this kind of, you know, fragile kind of virgin maiden, as it were. She's also a kick-ass goddess that can, you know, knock you out with a hammer. You know? So it's a bit of both. So with that, so when I think of healing energy, she's who comes through first. But again, if I'm doing some kind of healing work, sometimes her energy is appropriate, sometimes it's not. You know, all the goddesses in their own right can offer healing energy, right? But not all of it's appropriate for everything, if that makes sense. You know, you would, for example, if someone has a broken heart, for example, that they just had their first kind of adultery kind of portrayal, they feel very hurt, and they're very disconnected and very kind of insular about the world. I wouldn't necessarily turn to 𝗔𝗓𝗏 in those moments, because making them go deeper into the cauldron probably isn't what they need. You know, 𝗓𝗏 will certainly take them there, and we'll spit them out in a whole different version. But ultimately, sometimes people need to come back from the darkness before they can jump back in again, if that makes sense. So different deities certainly work in different ways, and certainly will help and support in their own way.
Why is the archetypal maiden aspect of goddess associated with healing for you?
I think it's probably the most well known. I think the maiden Bridie is probably the most well kind of known when it comes to healing. And although I see that when I think of Bridie, I see her as the maiden, absolutely, but I don't see her as the innocent kind of waif in the fields. I see her as much more, like I said a minute ago, much more powerful than that. But again, you know, just because 𝗓𝗏 appears to be an old lady doesn't mean she's weak. Just because Bridie appears to be a young maiden doesn't mean she's foolish. Yeah. You know, there's both. How they first appear is their preference for how they appear and how people relate to them, but that's not their entirety. And I think a lot of people who spend a lot of time working with the different deities often aren't prepared to embrace the other sides to them, if that makes sense. You know, I'm using 𝗓𝗏 as an example because she's not the complete opposite to Bridie, but she's one of the polar opposites. You know. But you know, Bridie can be sweet, she can be lovely, she can be gentle, absolutely. You know, she can be foolish, she can run around and dance and sing and have a great time. But she can also kick your ass. You know, she can also say no to you. You know, she can also say, yeah, we can heal this, but it's going to take a kick in the ass. You know, it's not just a gentle kind of handhold. It's going to take a bit more kind of energy than this. You know, but being prepared to acknowledge that. And there's so many people who fall into the healing world who only think healing is gentle, right? If you talk to a doctor and say, you know, name me the worst illnesses you can think of, like medical science, the worst illnesses, right? Yeah. Okay, so they'll name cancer, they'll name food, they'll name some horrible poisoning, they'll name probably radioactive nasties or this kind of stuff, right? The treatments for those are just as aggressive, are just as horrible. So actually, when you're dealing with some real horrid things that need to have some really intense healing, you can't do it gently. Yeah, so sometimes you have to match fire with fire, and that's where Bridie comes in really nicely for this, because matching fire to fire, she's the goddess of the bloody anvil. She's got the forge fire behind her, so she really can match fire to fire. But so many practitioners are scared to get burnt, right? And like I said, with the magnifying glass thing, sometimes if you are the channel and you're focusing through, you might get some singed fingers, you know. But while you're, you know, pushing forth energy that is, you know, red hot kind of like welding energy, the person's getting roasted and all sorted out. You might be slightly charred, but you know you can wash that off.
Is there a specific healing journey in which the goddess played a role, and would you be comfortable enough to share that with us?
A specific healing journey. So I've got probably two answers to that. I'm one of these people who have, through good intentions and stupidity, found myself in a variety of situations where my physical vessel has been put at risk, right? I fall out of trees. I've jumped out of cars before they've been hit by other cars. I've walked into burning buildings to try and save friends, this kind of stuff. So, and in all those moments, I've always gone into it knowing, A, this isn't the time to die, so I'll come out of this, right? I might come out of it with a broken leg, I might come out of it with burnt shoulders, I might come out of it in a bad way, but I'll come out of this, and when I come out of it, there will be healing waiting for me. So, healing journey, it's more about the confidence knowing that healing is open to me, healing is available to me, that I don't have to go and book in for a 30-minute session down the local clinic to get that healing, because I work with deity, work with spirit. But equally, if you're about to go into a situation where, you know what, there's a good chance I'm going to come out of this with a black eye, making a little bit of an agreement ahead of time, getting the healing engines worked up ahead of time, means you come out, the ice pack's already ready for you. Yeah. So healing journey, I have always recovered very quickly from my various falls, my various problems, my various broken ribs and stuff. But I've always got into it knowing that I've got that support blanket behind me, if that makes sense. From a more emotional perspective, I suppose one of the worst things happened to me in my life, this is many years ago, my marriage broke down. I found myself living in a caravan with no electricity, no water. It was real kind of like, you know, bottom of the barrel kind of moment. And although I had, you know, no money and no kind of support, and I was very much kind of like isolated, I still felt supported. I still felt connection. So I was being emotionally healed through that. And when I learned in there, and I had this moment driving home from work one day when I really kind of broke down, and I was, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to come around of it? And I remember the lady of Avalon kind of set forth and said to me, like, is it the relationship you miss? Is it the partner you miss, right? Is it the sexual connection you miss? You know, what is it you're longing for? What your heart's bleeding, your heart's breaking. What is it you're yearning for? And as I sat there on the side of the road, streaming out tears and all the rest of it, I realised actually it was the sense of coming home. So actually, I missed more coming home to a place I could see as safe, more than coming home to her, my partner, more than coming home to my favourite sofa. It was a sense of home that I missed more than anything else. So when I got back to my, you know, grotty caravan with a missing window, you know what? Hell with it. This is home. For now, this is home. And suddenly embracing that as the new safe place. Actually, you know, no one knows where I am. I'm in the middle of a field with permission. I wasn't squatting, but no one knows where I am. So I'm just as safe here as I was in the bricks and mortar house that I'm paying a mortgage for. Just as safe, you know. And that safety, that connection, that intellectual kind of leap from I feel lost, I feel alone, what do I do? With conversation with the lady helping me understand actually you're not lost, you're not alone, but you just haven't realised how safe you are, you know, and you're still supported. So yeah, so a healing journey, absolutely. They made me totally value and appreciate how much I put faith and stock in, that when I come home from work and when I close that front door, that I want to feel safe. You know, and I think probably everyone feels that, but for me it was a real kind of milestone moment where actually, okay, so I can feel safe if I feel safe wherever I go. You know, whether I'm sleeping in a caravan, sleeping in my car, or sleeping in my favourite bed, I still feel safe. you know, because I am safe, because I've got the lady and the support and the healing all around me. So if you feel healed, if you feel that you have healing, if you feel connected to the ground and the world around you, then you'll always be safe and you'll always be healed. And therefore, actually, why would you be worried about anything?
Do you perceive a stark contrast between soul healing and physical healing, or are they ultimately bound together? What's your perspective?
I think the term soul healing is used by different practitioners and has been coined to mean very different things. So if you talk to someone who is a trained esoteric soul healer, how they'll just determine it will be based on their practice. If you talk to someone who does lots of past life regression and that kind of healing, they'll see soul healing as healing the wounds or the misnomers of past incarnations. If you talk to someone who believes that they were born into a cursed family line, then for them soul healing is breaking the curse their family has. So I think soul healing is such a broad term and open up to so many different demographics. So yes, I would say that soul healing is different to physical healing, absolutely. But even physical healing, you know, are we healing, you know, a minor cut? Are we healing some blood disease that the doctors have deemed to be, you know, something you'll never lose? You know, has a child been born with a club foot? You know, so there are so many aspects of healing. How we perceive it, how we interpret it, how we understand it in our brain is very much how we interact with it. I'm a strong believer of that. So if you believe deep down that soul healing and body healing are one and the same, that if you develop cancer in this incarnation, it's because of bad mistakes you've made in your soul history, then that's what's going to happen for you. That's what you believe. That's what you've linked those two together. But because you believe they're linked, they've now become linked, and you can't heal one without the other, if that makes sense. Whereas if you believe that you're born into this incarnation with learned lessons from previous ones, and anything you've inherited, you can probably let go of it just as much as you want to keep it, then you believe that too. So I don't. For me personally, there's not a straight answer to that. You know, if I was a practicing soul healer and that was my livelihood, I'd probably have a much more detailed answer. But for me, healing the soul and healing the body, they're two separate things. But I can imagine for certain people who have hereditary histories and stuff, maybe there are links. But for me personally, they're two separate things.
Have you experienced the healing energy of Avalon, specifically of the land? And if so, how would you describe it?
Okay, so Avalon itself is a giant energy booster. Yeah, and we spoke about a little bit about this earlier on. If you walk into the high street with a headache, right, you'll get a migraine. Yeah, if you walk into the high street in a great mood, right, you're likely to have an orgasm on the high street because it'll amplify it. Yeah, so the energy of Glastonbury is not good or bad. It's not healing or sour, right? It is an amplifier, right? And if you plug into it, it will wash through you, build through you, and overflow you, right? Putting the goddess spin on that, Avalon is very much the lady. So the goddess of Avalon, the goddess of the world, the goddess of the ground, flows through this place, stronger than anywhere else I've visited, right? You get gods and goddesses of all different lands all over the world, and there'll always be some kind of native spirit, native deity knocking about, and that's quite common. But the goddess of this ground or this land is more powerful here, not just because there are worshippers of her here, but that helps, right? The land itself is shaped in the lady. The physical mountains of the hills are in her body form, so it all helps for it. So would I say I've experienced the healing energy of Avalon? Yes, I have. Would I say I've experienced the energy of Avalon? Yes, every day. When I sit on a bench in a field, when I sit around nature, right? When I feel the breeze flowing through, it's not just energy from the ground. It's the wind, it's the ground, it's the life, it's the lushness of the colour of the grass. All that is the energy of Avalon that I sit in and walk around and live through. And the healing side of it, to me, feel like I'm plugged in all the time. It's a bit like when you take your laptop off charge, the screen dims like a little bit because the laptop's been told to go on a slightly lower power setting because you're not plugged in. I feel the same way. When I leave Avalon, I feel the plug's taken out, and I'm not quite. I've still got energy. My battery's still fully charged, but I haven't got that limitless source of energy that I do when I'm on this island. And a part of me very much sees that energy of the Avalon as linking to the energy of the goddess, very much so. And I think because not everyone understands goddess, but more people understand Avalon, as it were. More people are probably more willing to understand energy of the ground than they are energy of her. I probably talk about the energy of Avalon more so than I do the energy of her, because if people haven't met her yet, or in whatever form she's introducing, they have to learn how to connect with energy first, right? So, for example, a metaphor: if you've never had a curry before, right? You've never had a curry. Is a vindaloo the best first experience? Probably not, right? Better to start with a korma or a nice butter chicken, right? To kind of ease into it, right? So, same principle. If you've not worked with energy before, going to a full-on goddess incarnation, goddess kind of trance prophecy is probably a little bit too much for the first session. So get into energy first, learn how it feels, get a bit of a boost, bit of a kind of a tingle out of the waters, and then move from there. So for me, yes, I've definitely felt the energy of Glastonbury, the energy of Avalon. I feel the energy of the lady every day. I work outside. I work both in town and beyond town. So whenever I leave the area, when I come back, I feel that plug-in coming back in. Right, when I'm back in, I always look at the moon, see the lady, and very much aware that I've returned to Avalon because the lady has welcomed me back in again.
Do you feel healing is a necessary process we face after wounding or trauma, or do you think it's an ongoing practice that we should nurture in our life day to day to move forward in a more integrated and holistic way?
I'd say that if you want a healthy, balanced lifestyle, then yes, it's necessary. But equally, you can survive as a human, only drinking Coca-Cola. You could choose never to drink water again and just drink Coke. You'd survive, right? You'd get weird teeth and you'd end up looking a bit like a cripple, but you'd survive, right? So yeah, is it necessary? If you want a balanced, healthy life, absolutely. But is it necessary to live? No, because there are 1,000 people in the world who don't embrace energy, who don't embrace the lady, who don't embrace healing, who don't embrace the lady, who don't seek to better their circumstance. Yeah. So for me personally, if I have a headache, for example, right, if I can work out what's causing the headache, right, okay, so I have a headache because I'm dehydrated. Okay, I now don't need to suffer for the next 6 hours with that headache. Now I've analysed where it's come from, so I'll drink some water. Right, I might even have a painkiller or tuck a bit of rosemary behind my ear or whatever it is to get. Now I know where the pain's coming from. I've analysed it. Right, it was my own doing. That's what's caused it. Right, perfect. I now want the pain to go away because I've been told, my body has told me the problem. I've analysed it. I know what the problem is. Right, I now don't need reminding of what the problem was because I know what it is and we can move on. Right, but like if your house fire alarm goes off, right, because you burnt the toast. Right, once the smoke is cleared, you don't need the alarm to keep going, to keep reminding you that there was once smoke, right? Once you've dealt with the problem, you turn the alarm off. So for me, understanding what causes us problems, what causes us physical ailments, what causes us fatigue or stress, any of the things that we need healing for, analyze and understand what's causing it first. Don't just try and treat or heal the symptom, understand what's causing it. So yeah, so is it necessary? Absolutely. But equally, people can survive without it,
Which wounds do you feel are the hardest to heal from in your experience, and how do you support such healing?
Probably a gunshot to the heart was pretty hard work, isn't it? If someone's just hit me point blank with a shotgun, I imagine I'd probably struggle with that, to be totally fair. So I suppose the hardest wounds to heal from are the ones where you have been blinded to what's caused it. So if you have misanalyzed where it's come from. So I'll give you an example. So I had a colleague at work and she's had chronic pain in her shoulder for the last 2 years, right? Real kind of intense pain. She's been on different drug therapies, different GP referrals, pain, right? And she was describing her symptoms. And I'm like, well, I'm sure the doctors know what they're talking about, but what you're describing doesn't sound like what they're talking about, just from how you described to me. So I recommended her to go see a therapist, a chiropractor, who, funny enough, found exactly what I thought it was. Yeah. And she's had a session with them, 4 or 5 sessions, and is now no longer in pain after going to doctors for 2 years, because it's very hard to diagnose pain, right? Unless you recognize it. And if you're just going off the basic symptoms, which most people talk about, it's hard to understand that. So the hardest wounds to heal are the ones you don't fully understand. So if you haven't spent time understanding it, if you haven't spent time researching it, and that's research includes medical journals, healing journals, talking to other people, if you're blinded to options. Classic example is if you walked up to the average person on the high street, just average Joe, right? Can you spare me an hour of your time? Oh no, I'm totally busy. How about for a free tarot session? Oh, I've got time for that. Oh, it's interesting, right? Someone else, can you spare me 2 hours of your time? Oh, I've got time, I've got to get the kids. Well, what if this 2 hours guaranteed you never experience pain again? Oh, I could probably find time. Oh, hang on. So if you look at most therapies, whether it's Reiki or reflexology or 𝗚𝗏𝗵𝗴 ear canal therapy or hot stone massage, whatever it is, most therapies work on the fact that for 70% of that therapy, right, you've given yourself permission just to sit down and do nothing for an hour, right? Just to actually sit down with your feet up, right? Close your eyes, nice calm music, some nice smells, right? But for an hour, you get to do nothing while someone else pokes you, prods you, massages you, wafts some nice things around you, rubs your face, whatever it is. But you've given yourself permission just to stop and rest. And in this day and age, this busy world, very rarely do we give ourselves permission to rest unless we're asleep, right? And most people, when they fall asleep, they're going to sleep because they're tired, right? Or it's either 10 o'clock, it's bedtime, so it's a routine, or they're knackered, so they fall asleep. But they don't go to bed, or they don't go to sleep with the intention to rest. They go to bed with the intention to sleep, because they should, or they have to, they think they should. So they end up sleeping for 8 to 10 hours. They wake up equally as tired because they haven't rested. They've slept, they've got some modicum of rest in that period of time, but the length of sleep doesn't always equate to the length of rest, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So I'm someone who's put an awful lot of time into this kind of mindset. So I run on 2 to 3 hours sleep a day, right? Yeah, and that's because when I sleep, I'm consciously resting. I create the environment, the situation, the setup, so that once my eyes are closed and I'm gone, I am getting as much out of that rest period as I can. I'm not just sleeping because that's the time of day to sleep. I'm not just sleeping because it's social. I'm not just sleeping because, you know, it's 11 o'clock and I should. Yeah. So for me, rest and sleep are two different things. Rest is the healing moment, right? Sleep is one of the methods to get there. Yeah. You can get just as much rest out of meditation, right, as you can out of sleep. You know, once you fall asleep and the conscious mind loses connection and you hand over to the subconscious, then you may not be getting the rest you need. You might be dreaming and off fighting dragons or going through crystal caves or on magical journeys. That may not be restful. You might be having nightmares, right? Definitely not restful, you know? So learning how to rest, how to actually heal yourself, how to recover yourself is vitally important.
What do you think that the collective needs to heal from the most at the moment?
I'm going to go slightly left field on this one because why not? I think the collective needs to heal from a complacency. People are far too accepting of being bored and indecisive. If you're bored, you are not filling yourself with enough stuff to do. If you're bored, you're not finding things to be interested by. If you're indecisive, it means you haven't given yourself enough knowledge or equipment or expertise to make a decision. So for me, if I could wave a wand and rid humanity of two things, and that's an acceptance that it's okay to be bored, and an acceptance that indecision is a good thing.
If you could send a healing blessing to all of the community of the conference celebrating the Goddess of Healing this year, what would your healing blessing be?
As odd as it sounds, I wouldn't. I don't believe in healing energy, blessings, or spells, or intention that aren't asked for, that is not consensual, if that makes sense. If I'm sending out energy to a blanket medium, right, then if half of them don't know what it is, they won't receive it. If a third of the rest understand what it is, they'll be surprised who it's coming from and won't necessarily know. So big blanket energies like that, unless you're doing it with a big group and it's big shared intentions, I think a lot of energy is wasted. So I'd much prefer to send energy out to individuals or to targeted pockets. But principally, I believe that magic and spirituality should be consensual. So if I'm walking on the road and I suddenly feel energy coming from someone, right? Do I just let it in willingly? Oh, bring it on, whatever it is, right? It could be love, it could be horror, it could be urine, it could be dark nasties, right? It could be some, malignant spirit shitting on me from above, I don't know. So I personally don't send out energy unless it's been invited and it's received and it's understood.
That's actually very wise. Peter, thank you for your time. On behalf of everyone that watches this video, thank you for sharing your wisdom and your words with us. I've really enjoyed talking to you. And
Thank you very much.
We can't wait to see you at the conference.
Welcome everyone. Thank you.
This interview was conducted by Ria Varma. Join us this year for the 29th Glastonbury Goddess Conference, a joyful gathering of goddess-loving people, a 6 days in-person event in Glastonbury, Avalon, running from Tuesday 30th July to Sunday 4th August 2024, with the fringe events starting from Sunday 28th July. This year the theme is the Goddess of Healing. It's our maiden year, the first year of a new 5-year cycle. International presenters, transformative workshops and experiences, deep ceremonies on the sacred land of Avalon, community, art, fun, and love for Goddess. Let your healing journey begin this year. Join us for the Glastonbury Goddess Conference, Goddess of Healing. There are so many options to participate: full conference tickets, weekend tickets, day tickets. Find what suits you best and get your ticket now at goddessconference.com.